everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this pendant. This pendant is using that gorgeous 18 by 25 millimeter teardrop fancy stone from the Summer in Sicily collection from Eureka Crystal Beads and Gina from Orchid and Opal Jewelry and Beads. So I've used that big stone and a few of the other beads. I used this little chaton Monty 8 millimeter in a setting. So here's our pendant. Here's the back, like so. We've already done the earrings. So here are the earrings. If you'd like to take a look at those, I'll put those in the description box below the video as well. I also wanted to show you, in case you haven't seen them, I have some videos on my channel where I've used that particular stone before. And so here, actually, this is the stone, the 18 by 25, and this is the cushion cut. So these cushion cuts and these cushion cuts. So if you have the cushion cuts, you need another one if you want to make this one. But I'll link this necklace in the description box below the video. So we have that one. And then this is one I made a while ago. This little sort of heart looking pendant. So that's another one. So you can tell I love that stone. It's a big, beautiful stone. I think it's just gorgeous. But we're going to work on this one today. Let's get a materials list going. So you need this big, gorgeous 18 by 25 Pacific Opal stone. So pretty. I just love this color. You'll need one of these 8 millimeter chaton Monty. So that's a chaton in a setting. Oops. So you'll need some 3 millimeter fire polish beads. Now some of these beads are from the Summer in Sicily collection, but I think it's sold out, but all the beads are available separately. But if you have the collection, I did use a few of the beads from there. So the big stones and, you know, the chatons. We've got some 4 millimeter pearls. These are in the collection. We've got some delicas. Those are in the collection. We've got some 3 millimeter bicones, those are not, and some 2 millimeter fire polish, they're not either. And then we've got some 11-Os. So the 11-Os and the 15-Os, Miyukis are in the collection. I used a different color on some of it, so I used this champagne color. I'll link that color down below as well. Let's see, you'll need a crimp tube. Here we go. Got a crimp tube here, and you'll need a clasp. So I use the clasp from the collection. So here's the clasp. And you'll need some soft flex beading wire, and I'll link that in the description box below the video. It's very fine, and I think I had it in copper, but I used it all, and I tossed the spool, and it's already in the garbage. So you need a stop bead here. If you are using wire, because you can use whatever chain you like. If you're using wire, these little springs are lifesavers for me, because that way you can put it at the end when the wire's open without any crimp on it or anything, and the beads aren't going to go flying, which they always do for me. So I love these. I have two. I can't find the other one. I'm going to order another one. I think that's it. Let's see. Let me check everything. Yeah, I think we're good. 15-Os. Yep. Did I use any 8-Os on here? No, I didn't. All right, so that's about it. Everything will be listed. Oh, and by the way, 4-pound fire line. I used a size 11 beading needle. When I did this part of this component right here, I used 6-pound because you're going through that setting. Oh wait, hold on. You're going through this setting, and those edges are sharp. I'm afraid the 4-pound would cut through the 4-pound. So I use 6-pound for that part. But everything will be listed: sizes, shapes, colors, amounts, where to purchase. If you need to, will be listed in the description box below the video as always. All right, so I'm going to clear this off, and we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. So thread your needle with about 4.5 feet of thread. Put on a stop bead around the middle. You can have a little bit longer thread coming out of the needle because, you have your, this part coming out of the side of the needle. So I've dropped down to the stop bead 54 delicas. Now I'm going to sew those into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead. So just like that. Okay, so I'm exiting the first bead after my stop bead. Now we're going to just do a little peyote to start. So exiting here, I'm going to skip a bead and I'm going to sew through the following bead. Like that. I'm going to pick up a bead, exiting here. I'm going to skip this one and sew through the next one. Just like that. Do that one more time, pick up a bead, exiting here, skip this one, sew through the next one. So you're just going to keep doing this all the way around and then we'll step up. Okay, we've got one more bead to put on. So picking up a delica, I'm exiting here, I'm going to skip this one, we're going to step up now, and I'm going to sew through the next bead and the bead on the diagonal, just like that. So we'll put some more beads on. This is what we have so far. Okay, we're going to add one more round of delicas. So I'm just sticking with this kind of this color, but notice I have the blue and the green. I think that's kind of pretty. You know, I'm not even alternating. They're just random, you know, the two colors just randomly put on. So I'm just going to add one more round of delicas. Like so. So I'll let you do that and I'll meet you at the end and we'll step up. I'm ready to step up. So here's my last delica. I've just put this one on here, exiting here. I'm going to sew through the next sticking out one, which is this one, and then the one on the diagonal. Just like so. So this is what we have so far. Okay, time to add some 15-0s. So I'm picking up a 15-0. I'm going to sew through the sticking out bead, which is the delica. So you're going to do this until you have about 10 of your 15-0s on. And then we're going to do a little decrease. So I'll just let you get to 10. Okay, so I've gotten 10 of my 15-0s on. I'm just going to hold it this way just because it's easier for me to sew like this. So here I have 10 on. Now I've put this one on, I'm exiting the delica. I'm just going to sew through the next delica without any beads on my needle. Oops. Like that. And that's going to give me the point for my stone. So just like that. And then you're going to continue on with your 15-0s until the end and then we'll step up. So you just have that one little part where you don't have, you see, and it's going to kind of point like that. So just keep adding your 15-0s and then we'll step up. Okay, let's step up. So picking up my 15-0, exiting this delica right here, I'm going to sew through this delica and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. This is what it looks like so far. This is what we have so far. So we're going to add another round of 15-0s. So here's my 15-0. I'm exiting right here. I'm just going to sew through the next 15-0. I'm just going to do that all the way around. And when you get to the point, it's just, you're just going to keep putting 15-0s on. You're not going to skip anything. You're just going to continue around. So get that done and come back and we'll step up. Okay, just for those of you who are maybe a little unsure about the point, so here I just put this bead on, I came through here. We're just going from here to here. Just putting that 15-0 right there, and then you're just going to keep going around. Okay, so get that done, and then meet me at the end, and we'll step up. Okay, time to step up. So exiting here, picking up my 15-0. I'm going to sew through this 15-0 and then the one on the diagonal. This is what we have so far. Okay, this is what we have so far. So I'm just going to leave that needle and thread right now, and I'm going to turn it on this side, and I'm going to put my stone in. Now you can tell I've already put it in just to check it. And this is one thick stone. Like, hit this part. See that right there? Wow, that's thick. that almost needs another round of delicas. I'm going to try to do it without another round of delicas. So I'm going to pop it in like that. And then you want to make sure that the place where you did the little decrease there is at the top, and then when I turn it over, it kind of corresponds with this delica right here. So you see delica, and then here are the two that is my decrease. So you just want to pop it in like that so your point of your stone is up at the top there. And I'm going to see how well the front bezels without putting another round of delicas on. So we'll see how that goes. So what I'm going to do now is, you've take off your stop bead, thread your needle. So you'll be exiting an interior delica, just one in here. So you just want to come through this one on the diagonal so you can put some beads on. So just like so. That's what the back looks like. Here's the front. I started to add a round of 15-0s without you. Sorry about that. So just put a 15-0 in between each sticking out delica, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, I've come down to the end. I'm exiting this delica right there. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through the delica and the 15-0 on the diagonal. And now we're set up to put some more beads on. Next up, I'm going to add an 11-0. So I'm going to use this matte, I think it's matte champagne or opaque champagne. I think it's matte. I'm exiting this 15-0. I'm going to sew over to the next 15-0. I'm actually putting an 11-0 in a place where I wouldn't normally put it. I usually do a 15-0 here, but it works well to put the 11-0 here because adding 11-0s around, and then meet me at the point and we'll do the point together. Okay, so I'm coming up to the point. I'm going to add my 11-0 right here, and then I'm not going to put anything here. I'm going to sew through the delica just without any beads on my needle, and this 15-0 like that, and then I'm going to add all of my 11-0s on this side. So that's how you'll be looking. So I'll just let you go off and do that, and then when we come back, we'll put on another round. We have one more bead to go. There's my 11-0. I'm going to step up. So exiting the 15-0, I'm going to sew through this 15-0 and this 11-0 to step up. Oops. Get myself situated here. There you go. 15-0 and 11-0. And now we're ready to put some more beads on. I'm going to make some picots, and I think I'm going to stick with 11-0s. So a little experiment here. Now I'm going to pick up a shiny gold 11-0. Exiting here, this 11-0, I'm going to sew back through this one and then the one I'm exiting. And I'm just going to place that bead just like so. Then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 15-0 and 11-0. And I'm going to do that one more time. Next 15-0 and 11-0. Like so. And I'm going to add another 11-0 to make a little point here. So just like that. And do that again. Sew through the next 15-0 and 11-0. And then the next 15-0 and 11-0. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew back through this one and then the one I'm exiting. Just kind of put that into place. So I'm just going to do that until we get up to the point, and then we'll do the point together. So I have this picot on right here. Just added this bead right here. So now I'm going to sew through the next 15-0 and 11-0. The next 15-0 delica, 15-0 and 11-0. So I'm exiting right there. Got my 11-0, and I'm going to sew through this one like that. And then rather than going straight across, because I don't want a thread showing, I'm just going to sew back through this 15-0, this delica, this 15-0, this 11-0, this 15-0, this 11-0, one more time, this 15-0 and this 11-0, like so. And then we're going to add our 11-0 to make our picot. So exiting here, I'm going to sew through this one and then the one I'm exiting. So just like that, and then you're just going to make the rest of your picots down the line. Okay, last picot. So I'm exiting right here. I'm going to sew back through this one and the bead I'm exiting. And then you should have all your beads on. And if your 11, if your little point beads start kind of popping up, don't worry about it. We're going to put another round on, so that's not going to be a problem. But that's looking very good so far. Okay, before we add another round, we're going to put some beads in between these points. I think it's looking good. So it was a little experiment right there. I'm glad that worked out. But I kind of want to secure the end here. So I'm exiting this 11-0 after putting, the point bead on. I'm going to sew through this 15-0. I'm going to sew through this 11-0 and the next 11-0. And then I'm going to sew through the point bead right there. And that just kind of ends everything and secures that last bead. So you'll be exiting here, one of these point beads, just right there. And this is what I have so far. So now you're just going to put a bead in between each of these points. So just choose whatever bead you like. I think it needs to be a 3mm. I think even an 8/0 will work. I grabbed this bicone just because I think it's so pretty. And I think it'll still go with the earrings. It doesn't have to be an exact match to the earring. As long as, like you see, I have the darker, I have the darker fire polish here, so I'll put the darker bicone here. You can use a little 3mm pearl. Whatever fits and looks pretty. Okay, so I'm kind of liking this little bicone here. So you're just going to do that all the way. My last bicone, I'm going to sew through the 11-0, and I'm going to go around. Actually, went around twice. The thin 4mm fire line. You can put a lot of passes through it, but it's so strong. I've been actually using this one thread. I've taken it out about 6 times and did it again, and this is still strong. Fireline is just, the 4-pound is amazing. All right, so this is what we have so far. I'm going to sew this thread in, and I just did the back. I made the little picots on the back. It's a little bit different, but you'll be able to get through. Or if you want, you can just keep, doing rounds of 15-0s. You can put an 11-0 in between or a 15-0. Just play with the back if you want to cover the back. All right, so here we are. Here's our bezel so far. How's it looking with our earring? So I think the two of them are looking super together. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to do some work around the outside of the bezel. Okay, we're actually going to bezel this 8mm chaton in the setting. And if you know me, you know that these are the bane of my existence. I have so much trouble bezeling these stones and settings, but I'm going to keep trying, and we're going to do it today, and we're going to make it work. So thread your needle with about 3 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave about a 10-inch tail. Okay, so I'm going to hold my piece like so, and I'm going to sew through these two, fuzz out of there. I'm going to sew through these 2 holes right here, so corresponding to this corner where this prong is. No beads on my needle, just doing it like so. Then I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs and I'm going to go back around again. So just like so. Okay, so I'm exiting right there. I'm going to come back through the 3 beads I just put on. You want to hold it here because they're very loose and they want to just fly out of place. So I've just come back through those 3, and then I'm going to advance through the next corner holes. So just like so. So this is what I have so far. And what you want to do here, gosh, it's so hard to hold, is you want to keep it on your finger and you want to keep these beads on the corner. You don't want them to go down, up. You want to keep them around the corner but flat against the edge of the component or the setting there. So just like that. I'm going to pick up 3 11-ohs. I'm exiting right here. I'm just going to come around through this hole here and out again, like that. And then you want to sew back through the beads, like so, and hold it so it doesn't pull out of shape too much, and then back through the corner holes again. Like so. So this is what we have so far. Okay, let's do that again. 3 11-ohs, exiting that corner hole. I'm going to sew through this one, and then back through this one, like that. And then you're going to sew through the 3 you just put on. Hold it so that sits just like so. Now you're going to advance through the next corner like that. All the while you're holding it so those beads are staying on the edge. Honestly, I don't know if it's my hands or what, but this is tough to hold on to. Last 3 11-ohs. So I'm going to come around, sew through this one and back through that hole to get that corner on. We're going to sew through the beads again. Just like this is what we have so far. We have the 4 corners have the 3 11-ohs embellishing. Exiting here, I'm going to pick up my 2mm fire polish and I'm going to sew through the next 3. And this is where it's going to sort of the structure, we're going to get some structure going so it's not so loose. Just like so. Do that again. Just going to do that all the way around. Like that. So I'll just let you do that 2 more times. Okay, last 2mm through these 3 11-ohs, and then on through that next fire polish bead. Okay, so you're going to reinforce all the way around and exit a fire polish. Okay, next up, I'm going to pick up an 11-oh, 3 11-ohs, but I've picked up the matte, a shiny, and the matte color. Exiting the fire polish, I'm going to sew through the next fire polish. I'm going to make sure that sits just like so. I'm going to do that again. 3 11-ohs, just, whatever colors you would like to use. I just like adding the shiny gold in between the matte because it gives it a little pop. So here, next group. So you're going to do that 2 more times. Last 3 11-ohs, exiting the little 2mm fire polish. I'm going to sew through that final one. Still holding it, although it's staying much better now. So if I just let go of it, it's kind of okay now. It's not loose anymore, but I'm still going to hold it as I go along. So I'm exiting the fire polish bead right there. Okay, so I'm exiting the fire polish. I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 3 11-ohs. So this is what we have so far. Okay, this is what we have so far. So we're exiting the 3 11-ohs on the side, you know, the matte and the shiny and then the matte. I'm going to pick up my fire polish bead and I'm going to sew through the next group of 3. So just like so. I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'll let you do the last 2 and then we'll continue. Last fire polish through these 3. And then I'm just going to advance my needle right through the next fire polish bead. Just like that. So we're exiting the fire polish bead. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a 4mm pearl, and an 11-0. Just like that. I'm exiting here. I'm just going to sew around the other side of that fire polish bead. So just like that. Okay, now I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 11-0, those 3 11-ohs right there, and the next fire polish. Like that. I mean, if you want to put something, instead of going through these 3 11-ohs and out the fire polish, you can always go through the fire polish, add maybe 3 or 4 or whatever, something here, and then go through this one. But I think I'm just going to leave it like this. I think that looks fine, but you can play with it and really, kind of, design, do a little designing. We'll do the same thing again, 11-0, 4mm pearl, 11-0, exiting the fire polish. I'm going to sew through the other side of the fire polish, and then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 3 11-ohs, like so, and the fire polish. Oops. Don't get caught. There we go. That's better. And then you're going to put the pearl on this one and go do this one, and then I'll meet you at the end. So do that 2 more times. Last 11-0 pearl, 11-0, exiting right here. I'm going to sew through the other side of that fire polish bead, get my last little group on there, and then I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 3 11-ohs. I just want to complete the circle. And so this is what I have so far. Okay, this is what we have so far. So before we go on, I'm going to turn it on the back. And I want to do a little work on the back. So I moved ahead a little bit, but I think I was exiting one of the holes on the actual setting. So I just moved my thread over so I was coming out of the 2mm fire polish there. So you'll just want to be exiting right there. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm exiting the little fire polish. I'm going to sew through the pearl. So it's just going to secure this a little bit. And I'm going to pick up another 11-0. I'm going to sew back through the fire polish. Okay, and you're really not going to see that from the front. You might see a little bit of the gold, but that's okay. So now we've kind of secured that corner. I'm going to advance through the next 3 11-ohs and the 2mm. I'll do that again. 11-0 through the pearl. 11-0. Kind of lost my 11-ohs here. Here we go. 11-0 back through the fire polish. Just like that. So you can do that 2 more times. And then that just secures it so this pearl is not flopping around. All right, so do that 2 more times, then come back and we'll go back to the front. So I put on my last, I'm still in the back here. I put on my last 11-ohs, around the pearl, and I've exited the 2mm, so just sew around here and tie some half-hitch knots, and then you're nice and secure and your pearls are going to stay in place. Okay, we're on the front now, and remember we left off exiting these 3 11-ohs in the interior, so I'm going to sew right through this 11-0 that's on the side of the pearl. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through the pearl like that. I'm going to pick up a 15-0. I'm going to sew through this 11-0. And then I'm going to move on through the next 3 11-0s right there. And then through the 11-0 on the side of the purl. I'm going to add a 15-0 through the purl. 15-0 through the 11-0 on the other side of the purl. You got it. And just keep moving around, adding those little 15-0s on the side of the purl. You know, after those 11-0s. Make sure I didn't get caught there. No, I didn't. Okay, so you're just going to do that all the way around. Okay, let's sew the components together. So make sure all your threads are sewn in for both components. Thread a needle with about 1.5 feet of thread, maybe, yeah, that's probably good. And you're not going to use a stop bead. We're going to use both ends of the thread. I think it's going to be the easiest way for you to see what I'm doing. So here, I'm going to give you some reference here. So here are these 2 delicas right here with the one in the center, these 2, and the one in the center. I want you to come through the second one down. So right here. So here's 1, 2. And you're just going to sew through that and keep your thread sort of half and half as best you can. Okay, now we're going to just advance our needle through the beads until we're at the same bead on the other side. So here I'm starting with this one, and we're going to end 1, 2 right here, coming out of that one. So just make sure your thread is, you have thread on both ends. And just start sewing through the beads on the diagonal until you get to that bead. So just going through the beads. One more. Do this one. That should set us up right here. So here are the 2, 1, 2. Got the 2 coming down on that side. And when I hold it like this, it's nice and centered. Let's connect the 2 pieces. So I've threaded, I've put a needle at the end of each thread, like so. And I've added a 15-0 to each side. See that? Just like that. So we're going to start with one side. We're going to sew through the 15-0, the 11-0, these 3 11-0s, and then these 2 right here. Now I'm going to take the other needle. I'm going to sew through these, the 15-0, the 11-0, the 3 11-0s in the center, so just sort of going back through the other way, and these 2 right here. I'm going to give that a pull. So we've got the this attached like so, but you want to make sure that you attach to this 15-0 here. So on either side, so through the 15-0 with this needle, so through the 15-0 with this needle. So now everybody is, all the beads are attached just like that. So we just do a little bit more. We're going to do a little on the back, and then we'll attach a chain. Okay, this is what we have so far. So I'm going to turn it on the back. Still have our 2 threads. I'm going to get a little structure on the back here. So I'm exiting this 15-0 in here. I'm just going to sew through. This is the delica. I'm back up to this delica. That's where actually the thread's coming out. So here, just like that. You're going to do that on both sides. So I've already done it on the other side, so I'll go ahead and do that for both sides. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm exiting this delica. I'm going to sew through this 11-0, the side of the purl. And I'm going to sew through these 2 of the 3 11 O's. Like that. So I'm exiting. I'm going to do the same thing with this thread, picking up an 11O, exiting this delica. I'm going to sew through this 11O right here, like that. And then the first two 11Os of that group of 3. I know this is like nuts. It just worked. Okay, so here we have 2 threads coming out of that middle 11O. What I have so far, I've got a thread coming out of that middle 11O. So I just want to connect these 2 beads here. So I'm going to pick up a 15O. I'm going to sew through the delica right there. And do the same thing with this side. I'm going to pick up a 15O. And I'm going to sew through this delica like that. And now we're all connected. So it's, you know, it's not going to flop around. So you just want to sew these threads in. You can just maneuver your way around on the diagonal through your delicas, and then your pendant is connected to the component, and then we'll put on a chain. Okay, so we're going to add a chain, and I'm going to use soft flex beading wire, and it's going to kink to start with. So what I did, so you want to make this about necklace length when you're using a wire. So because it's going to be more structured. If you're using thread, you can, you know, it kind of conforms to your neck, so you can make it any length you want. So this I'm making about, it's probably going to be about an 20-inch chains, 18-inch chain. We'll see, you know, as we go. But I'm going to cut a lot of wire. I'm cut about 30 inches of wire, 25, 30 inches of wire, because you want to make sure that, yeah, I'd go definitely at least 25 inches of wire. And what I did was I just took the tip. I've already gone through because it was impossible for me to get it on camera. I'll just talk you through. So I came through the purl. I just used the end like this, and see how kinked it is? I came through the purl, I came through this 11O, I maneuvered my way through these 3 11Os, and then this one and the purl. So right through here, and you just have to sort of push it around. Didn't take me long to get through. You just had to kind of maneuver it a bit, and this is what happened. So see how it kinked? And that's why I've added extra thread, because I wanted to be able to use it, but I knew that it was going to kink in order for me to get it through there. So what I'm going to do here is where it kinked, so it's right there, I'm just going to clip that off. So that was sort of an extra maybe 6 inches that I can't use. So just like so, the chain is. So now we're ready. I'm just going to string a chain, you know, some beads on here, and I think it's going to be really pretty. Okay, so I started with an 11O, and then I added a 4mm purl, and I just alternated 11Os and 4mm purls all the way down my chain, which was about, the chain was about 8 inches. And then I added, then, you know, you're going to add a little bit for the part of the top of the component, and I ended with an 8O after the 4mm purl. So here we go. Here's my end. I have about, you know, a few inches at the end. I ended with an 8O because you want to be able to get the wire back through, and sometimes it's hard to get it through an 11O. So here, I'm going to find my crimp bead. Here it is. And let me grab one. I have these absolutely enormous crimp beads, which you don't need this size. I just only happen to have these. I haven't done any, you know, much stringing lately, you know, on wire. So I probably need to restock. So I'm just going to put my crimp bead on. I have an 8O and then a crimp bead like that. And then I'm going to come through the jump ring on my toggle ring right there. I'm going to come around through the crimp bead. Actually, it's not a bad size. It's big, but I think it'll look fine. And then I'm just going to pull like that. And you want to make sure that you don't have any spaces, but you also want it all, you don't want it too kinked up. It will loosen up a teeny bit. So here, and you can just go right through. Can I get through that 11? No, I think I can get through the pearl. Here we go. Give that a pull. And before you crimp, just, you know, check it and make sure it's, you know, everything is the way you want it. Okay. So then I'm just going to, I don't have a crimp tool, but so I'm going to use my flat nose. Where are you? Here you are. I'm going to use this guy. And I'm just going to, I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to just pull again. And then I'm just going to squish the crimp. Like so. It just flattens it out. And so then you have your first crimp on. I didn't do that neatly, but it's okay. And then I'm going to do the other side of the necklace, and I'm just going to crimp the toggle bar on. Okay, we're back and we're done. And I think it's pretty. I really like it. And I love this sort of unit in that direction like that. So here's the one we worked on today. Here are the two that I showed you in the beginning. I'll put links to those in the description box using that same exact stone. Here are the earrings. Right there. I guess you could make an earring. I don't know. It doesn't have to match, does it? But you could make an earring because you have 6 of these. If you have the collection, you could make an earring just using this guy. So lots of options. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make. I did a little designing on the fly. I'm sure you could tell just by how I was beading. All right, so I want to thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you next time.